right? When the cloud is lower and lower and lower, and by the way, the lower they are, the more dangerous they are too. So they were threatening to others, but they were actually this umbrella that Allah Azza wa Jal provided to them. وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. This is fascinating. Allah says He sent down onto you. So the cloud is taking care of basic water supply, right, in the desert, and it's providing them shade from the heat. And these are lots and lots of people. The Bible exaggerates a little bit in the hundreds of thousands. That doesn't seem archaeologically or sociologically possible. I told you yesterday they split out little by little, right? But anyway, this group that is with Musa alayhi salam now, Allah says, we sent down onto you two things, al-manna was-salwa. Did you know that the Hebrew Bible uses the word manna, calls it manna? And it was actually, in Aramaic the word manna is found, and then it made its way into Greek, and from it even in Old English, manna. And it's used for a grain from Lower Egypt. Manna is actually a grain from Lower Egypt. In other words, Allah provided them something that was already kind of familiar to them. But manna, it's interesting, they first didn't recognize what it was. Let me tell you what it is. It's a kind of grain that grows on it's actually not inside the ground, or not like kind of grass kind of vegetation. It's this dry, like plant with twigs, like dried up twigs, and it looks like there's no leaves that are going to grow on it. And then insects come and they punch a hole in the branches. And then this honey-like thing comes out, and it forms and crystallizes, and it starts getting fuzzy looking. It starts looking white, like wool. This strange-looking plant. That's actually called manna. It's still used today in many Arab cultures near the Delta, and even Jewish culture. They actually consider it a delicacy even to this day. And they still call it manna. They still call it manna. So the word is across languages. Of course, in the Arabic language, Allah chose the word for another reason. Allah could have said al-hab also, seed also. But Allah chose this word, subhanAllah, because in the Arabic language, it means another thing. In addition to meaning the food that they were going to eat, man in Arabic means a favor. Allah sent a favor down onto you. So there's izdiwaj dalala. There's actually two meanings here, both intended by Allah Azza wa Jal. But what I find beautiful is that Allah says He sent down manna. I understand salwa. Salwa is basically quail. It's a quail-like bird, and it's interesting that in the summer season, this region that they travel through, to this day, quails migrate through that region, through the Sinai region. That's actually a natural migration pattern for these birds to this day. So when Allah says He sent them down means, when they migrate, they keep flying through. But the salwa would actually come and descend on the ground, and you would easily be able to catch it. Try catching a pigeon, how easy is that? But they wouldn't fly. They would actually stay. So in their high season, they just come and descend, and they were easily able to catch it and eat it. And this is a favor from Allah. Anzalna means we sent down, right? Like literally, He's force landing these birds. He's force landing these birds. But when I first studied this, I said, okay, I understand birds being sent down, anzalna. But how is the grain being sent down? The grain comes from the ground up. But then when you study this plant, you realize the grain never comes out until insects come down and punch a hole in the plant, and then it's actually produced. And then it comes out. Subhanallah. Anzalna alaykumul manna was-salwa. Everything came from the sky. The provision was coming from the sky. And if you look at it from a nutritional point of view, this manna was basically their carbs, their bread. They used to make bread with it. And then salwa was their proteins. So their essential nutrients are done. The only thing now they need is water, but basic water supply is coming from where? From the clouds. So they're kind of taken care of. Now, here's the other really interesting thing about this. When Allah Azza wa Jal sent them this food, وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى, Allah said to them, كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Eat from the many good and pure things of what we have, good and pure of what we have provided you. Eat from the good and pure of what we've provided you. Allah didn't provide them a lot of different things. All He provided them was what? Manna and salwa. And by the way, when they saw manna the first time, they didn't quite recognize it, because this was in the more remote parts of Egypt. They were living in the main city center where they were doing the construction for the Pharaoh. So when they saw manna for the first time, they didn't know what it was. And that's why in the Hebrew language, the meaning of manna today, thereafter in the biblical sense, manna means what is it? The word manna actually means what is it? Like the first time they saw it, they're like, what is that? That's literally what the meaning of it became to them. But anyway, Allah says to them, eat from the good and pure things that we've provided you. Min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. The word tayyib is important for the Muslims to understand. There's a difference between halal and tayyib. كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا فَإِذَا اجْتَمَعَا تَفَرَّقَا. When two words that are similar in meaning, they come together, their meanings are actually distinguished from each other. Halal means that which has been opened up for you, you have the license to eat it, you're not in trouble if you eat it. That's halal. But Allah doesn't just want us to eat halal. If Allah only wanted us to eat halal, He would have just said, كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا. Done. But He says, حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا. طيب actually means that which is good in and of itself. It produces goodness. It has goodness in it for you. It's inherently good and pure. This is actually the quality of food that you're supposed to eat. It should have good ingredients in it. You should eat fresh food, clean food. It should be tayyib. Just because it's halal doesn't mean you eat, like days old food and things like that. Or you eat things with nowadays like artificial ingredients and things. We should try to avoid those things because they're not tayyib. They may be halal, but they may not be tayyib for you. Allah Azza wa Jal describes to them what's been given to you is طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, good and pure things of what we've provided you. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا, and we didn't wrong them at all. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. However, they used to continuously do wrong to themselves. Allah will leave that idea for now. He'll say, we didn't wrong them, they continuously did wrong to themselves. We're not going to learn what that wrong is until a few other chapters. He's going to skip the story and leave us wondering what wrong could they have done. But I will give you some idea. These people are wandering in the desert for 40 years. They're in the desert for 40 years as a people. And the only supply of food they have is what? Manna, Salva, and that rainwater. That's all they got. Okay? And later on they're going to ask for more water because they can't keep waiting for the rain. So they'll ask for more water and that will come. But these two guys are sitting together going, hey man, what's for breakfast? Manna and Salva. What's for lunch? Salva and Manna. I decided to go crazy a little bit today, what are they going to do? Salwa soup and, manna sandwich, there's not much options. And these guys, brothers, you probably understand this a lot better. We're sitting there eating the same food every day. You guys can't even go to the same restaurant for iftar 2 days in a row. You can't do it. If your wife puts out chicken, you're like, we had chicken yesterday. Is this the same chicken from yesterday? Is it that bad in the world, in our household, that we have to eat the chicken from yesterday? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. These guys are having manna and salwa for breakfast, manna and salwa for lunch, manna and salwa for dinner. And so every once in a while, these guys are sitting back going, man, remember back in the day, we used to go to Burger King? We used to have ketchup. I miss ketchup, man. But what I would do for some ketchup right now. So they would miss the food from back in the day. They miss the food from back in the day. But of course, they're in the desert. Now, let's put this in perspective. They're in the desert. And in the desert, there's no natural reason why a cloud should be following them around. So they should be constantly under what? The sun. And if they're constantly under the sun, it's a matter of a week or two. You're going to have mass deaths of children, of the sick, of the old, of women. You're going to have people dying left and right because of heat stroke, because of dehydration. On top of that, there's no regular food supply. So people are actually going to start starving. Allah Azza wa Jalla is keeping them alive in a situation where otherwise the only possibility is death. But even if Allah is helping you survive, over time you get a little bored. And Allah says, then this boredom of theirs and their desire to get more led them to blasphemous behavior. And we'll get to that inshallah. Probably tomorrow we'll get to that. But today I want to tell you, why didn't they just go into some new town? There's lots of towns in the area. All of the towns were completely fortified. Massive, gigantic, military-style walls. Actually, Jericho in particular is described with, it's amazing. It's like they had this giant rocks as the first layer of wall. On top of the giant rocks, they had a 15-foot wall. Behind that wall, they had a slope that was slippery that went about 30 feet high, so that if the enemies would try to, even if they got